Hey gang, Coach Tim here, and today I want to talk about foods that accelerate aging. An interesting quote that always gets me thinking about this topic is one from Tom Petty, and he says, if you're not dead, then you're getting older, basically. And to me, that reminds me of the process of cellular aging, which is known as senescence. Basically, over time, our cells are getting older and older through this senescence process. And senescence affects every cell, every tissue, every organ system in the body. So everything from our mitochondria to our skin, which we often think about when it comes to aging, to our brain and nervous system, to our heart and cardiovascular system, to our muscles and our bones, to our immune system, to our digestive tract, to our endocrine system and our hormones, all the way down the line. Everything experiences this aging process. So as you've gotten older, maybe you've experienced that you don't have as much energy as you once did. Maybe you're not thinking quite as clearly, a little bit more brain fog. Maybe you're a little bit more forgetful. As you run down the line, maybe you experience more fine lines and wrinkles in your skin. Maybe hormone production isn't the same as it once was. Maybe you have more joint and muscle discomfort. Maybe you don't fend off colds and allergies quite as quickly as you once did. Maybe you're more susceptible to those things. Maybe a good night's rest isn't as easy to come by as it once was. Maybe digestive related issues are more common these days. Well, all those things can be traced back in one way or to another to an aging process in some way or another. And so, not to say that aging isn't going to happen. Aging is certainly inevitable, but there are very much factors in our lives that can accelerate the aging process or on the other side of things, slow things down to a more reasonable pace. And so I want to go over some of those things. And as you can imagine, food and nutrition most definitely plays a role. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So when it comes to accelerating aging, two of the biggest factors that come to mind for me are oxidative stress and unhealthy levels of inflammation that are persistent over time. So with oxidative stress, basically what we're talking about is excessive free radicals relative to the amount of antioxidants that we have present in our body's antioxidant defense system. So that imbalance is going to be excess oxidative stress. And for quite some time now, science has showed that oxidative stress is intricately tied to the aging of all the cells, all the tissues in the body. Inflammation typically follows in the footsteps of oxidative stress. So whether or not inflammation is causing aging, I'm not sure that we know that for sure, but it certainly seems to be associated. In fact, there's a term called inflammaging that ties the two together. A C-reactive protein is generally a systemic marker of inflammation, and that's considered to be a pretty classical biomarker of aging. So again, whether or not that's causing aging, that's a point for a different day, but it's a pretty strong association. So anything that we can do to get inflammation back into a healthy balance is going to be important. So from a nutrition standpoint, there are several things to discuss. For starters, the standard American diet or the Western style of diet is composed of somewhere around 70 to 75% of processed foods, ultra-processed foods, which are rich in refined carbohydrates, added sugar, and poor quality fats such as refined, bleached, deodorized vegetable oils and trans fatty acids. That Western style of eating is certainly associated with accelerated aging, with oxidative stress, with excess levels of inflammation. And I think you can think about it this way. If your diet's 3/4 or more of these processed, nutrient-sparse, energy-dense foods, then it's also, maybe at best 1/4 or less of actual nutrient-dense, antioxidant-rich foods like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, all the healthy fats, all those plant-based foods that would be fighting off aging, so to speak. So I think that's one way to think about it. Another factor to consider in diet is excess consumption of omega-6 fatty acids, in particularly out of balance with omega-3 fats. So high omega-6 intake, low omega-3 intake, which again is going to be very common with the standard American diet way of eating, because omega-6 fats are so prevalent in processed foods in the form of these poor quality refined vegetable oils, soybean oil, cottonseed oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil, corn oil, and so on down the line. Canola oil could throw in there as well. Another big topic to discuss are advanced glycation end products, which the acronym for that is AGEs, and as you can imagine, that's a pretty apt acronym for these compounds, as they can have been shown to accelerate aging. They increase oxidative stress, increase inflammation, impair antioxidant defense systems, so that they're not really they're not doing anything good as far as the aging side of things goes. And they're found they can be formed both during cooking. The prime example is like high heat cooking of meat, so grilled, broiled, roasted meats are going to be a prime example of AGE foods, but there's some surprising foods in that category as well. Breakfast cereals, breads, things like that, anything that's exposed to high heat, and particularly that has proteins and sugars in them. But AGEs can also be found or be formed in the body, so this is especially prevalent in response to high levels of blood sugar. So if eating highly processed carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates that get into the blood very quickly and lead to high blood sugar, or just long-term levels of high blood sugar, can lead to the formation of these advanced glycation end products. So those are a few items that I think kind of set the tone for some of these foods that are going to lead to accelerated cell aging. I just also want to note that they're beyond food. There's many other factors that can accelerate aging, and if you click on the link to the article, or you can read the article that I posted there, I'll list those all out. Things like excess UV radiation, poor quality of sleep, mood-related issues, sedentary lifestyle. There's several, like I said, but nutrition can certainly play a role. So with that in mind, I think you probably already have an idea of some of the foods that would, or categories of foods, I would say, that would accelerate aging. And some of the things that come to mind for me are those high heat cooked meats, so your grilled, roasted, and broiled meats. I would throw out there the caveat, though, that if these things are eaten, especially like these meats that can be, or proteins that can be healthy overall, if they're combined with plenty of vegetables and an overall healthy diet, then maybe that mitigates the issues, or maybe that doesn't even cancels it out. Maybe it doesn't even result in that same level of accelerated aging. That if you're, again, I think it comes back to what I would call your body of nutrition work. So that standard American diet's a good way to think about it. If 75% of what you eat is accelerating aging, that's a big problem. If 10 to 20% of what you're eating is that, then maybe not so much of an issue. So consider the big picture and not just a single food or a single meal for that matter. Other things that come to mind going to obviously be fried meats and fast foods, certainly fit under this umbrella of age accelerating foods. Margarine would be another big one. I think you'd have to throw in there things like vegetable oils, like I mentioned, that are in processed foods, and even meat from feedlot animals that are being fed seeds like soybeans and corn that are rich in these omega-6s. Their fatty acid profiles tend to be higher on the omega-6s too, so the feedlot animals compared to grass-fed animals. Another thing would be your baked goods and sweets with refined carbohydrates and even added poor quality oils. On top of that, you have breakfast cereals, which are again made with refined grains and even have these AGEs in them. Then there's things like breads, bagels, pastas. Again, you've got refined grains, you've got AGEs, you've got added sugar. Then you've got, let's talk about maybe fruit juices even, that are these high glycemic carbohydrates, or that get into the bloodstream very quickly, potentially often leading to overconsumption. That's maybe one of those where costs outweigh the benefits, so eating, again, whole fruit probably substantially better than fruit juice. Excess alcohol consumption would be another thing that's going to lead to excess oxidative stress, excess inflammation. Again, this is one of those things where maybe a glass or two of alcohol or a drink or two of alcohol could have beneficial effects on inflammation, but when in excess is going to have a negative effect. So as they say, the poison is in the dose, especially when it comes to alcohol. And then finally, artificial sweeteners. We're really learning that there's not really a whole lot of good that comes out of them. Certainly, infrequent consumption may be neutral, but there doesn't seem to be any benefit. So watching your consumption, limiting, perhaps even just completely eliminating artificial sweeteners if possible. So I hope that you found this helpful. I'd love to hear your feedback. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, and let's fight aging together. Let's get healthy.